is the cumulative total of all our yearly budget deficits offset by a little bit of the surpluses. In 2008, not to only bash what's happening now, but at the end of the Bush administration, in 2008, our budget deficit was $455 billion. Right now, the U.S. debt is $11.8 trillion. That's $38,000 for every man, woman, and child in this country. $38,000 for each one of you. There's a debt. Now, the White House has projected this year's debt, or budget deficit, to be $1.84 trillion. That's quadruple what it was the last year of the Bush administration, which wasn't good either. This is mainly due, there isn't so big this year, you have a $700 billion Wall Street bailout and the $787,000 billion stimulus package. Now, back in 1980, our budget, our debt hit its first $1 trillion. And Ronald Reagan had a statement to say about it. Ronald Reagan said, "We don't have $1 trillion debt because we don't tax enough. We have $1 trillion debt because we spend too much money." Now, Ronald Reagan was a believer in what's called fiscal conservatism. And if anything I say you remember today is these three words: fiscal conservatism works. Fiscal conservatism works. This is what we use in Berry County. It works in Berry County. It can work for the state of Michigan, and it can work for America. Fiscal conservatism. Now, I know fiscal conservatism doesn't sound as exciting as stimulus, and it doesn't sound as wacky as cash for clunkers, but fiscal conservatism works. Now I want to regress back to 1773 Boston. Sam Adams is speaking at a town hall meeting where thousands of people have gathered outdoors to talk about their opposition to taxes on tea. After the meeting, 30 to 130 men, poorly disguised as Mohawk Indian warriors, boarded 3 trading ships. They brought up 342 chests of tea from the ship's holds, brought it to the deck, and busted open the chests of tea with tomahawks, dumping the contents into Boston Harbor. The Boston Tea Party. Now, for today's tea party, we're not going to be busting open any chests of tea with tomahawks, although that sounds like a whole lot of fun. But you may, as a symbolic gesture, hold a tea bag up or have a cup of tea. Now today we are gathering in public to tell our government that we have concerns about what they are doing, and they must pay attention to us, and they must listen to us. Thank you.
I think that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Okay, next on the docket here is Representative Rick Jones, who I met today for the very first time. State representative for the 71st District in Eaton County. Some might wonder, well, why is a former Eaton County sheriff and representative from Eaton County here today? Move this mic up. He's here because there's this thing called a monument over in Lansing, and it's got some waste going on over there we can tell us about.
Good morning. Good morning on this beautiful Labor Day in the great state of Michigan. I'm here today not to talk about the federal government, but to talk about the state government, because that's what I have some expertise in. Your state tax dollars. You know, we're here on Labor Day talking about the men who pay taxes and how those taxes are wasted. Before I go any further, I want to thank the veterans here in the crowd, because our freedom to be up here You know, our freedom to be up here today and talk about our government was guaranteed by the men and women who served, the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, the United States Coast Guard. God bless all of them. But the governor has not come up with a response. In fact, the governor has not come up with any new ideas since February.
Gonna blow
No
your way
leadership.
on our way out. New taxes.
Yes, we feel like we've been blown away.
Do you have health care?
Well, let me tell you what happens if we don't have a balanced budget by October 1. The state shuts down. Now let's talk about what happened last time this happened. Well, they kept the legislature in session around the clock and bad government took place. Okay, they passed an income tax on it. They passed the Michigan business tax, and they passed a thing called the service tax. Now, what's a service tax? When you pay service taxes, you would on a haircut or a trip to the beauty parlor, or maybe you're a senior citizen, you got to hire somebody to mow your lawn. Those are service taxes. Well, that was so unpopular. The people were so angry that that stayed for about 15 hours. Then they called the legislature back in session again late at night and said, well, we better get rid of this thing. The people are mad, and passed a Michigan business tax surcharge, making it even tougher to do business in Michigan and driving jobs out of the state.
Do you have health care?
Right now, in Lansing, they're talking about more taxes on gasoline, on beer, on cigarettes. Maybe we ought to have more sales tax. Maybe we ought to have more income tax.
Passed on to the public.
In fact, you want to know about gasoline? The state of Michigan taxes a tax. That's right. There's a gallon of gas, and then they put federal tax on it, and they put Michigan fuel tax on it, and then they put sales tax on the whole thing. They tax a tax. Now, what's really frustrating for me, what I'm seeing is a new movement. Well, let's control Americans' behavior. Let's do it with tax. Now, pop isn't good for us, so let's put a new tax on pop so people don't drink so much of it. And some people say, well, we don't like bottled water because, you know, it's in plastic, so let's put a new tax on bottled water. So they're trying to control your behavior with new taxes. Now, I think everybody here today wants the basics out of their state government, their taxes. You want the basics. You want roads. You want public safety. You want schools to stay open. But we can't pay for everything. We have to limit the growth of the state government. We've got to control spending. Now let's talk.
Turn your sign a bit. Turn your sign a bit.
I'm in my 5th year in Lansing, and I'm looking at the waste. One of the first things I found out was that you can serve as a state representative or a senator for 6 years, and when you leave, you can have lifetime retirement health insurance. Yeah, believe it or not. Now, they've gotten rid of the retirement, the massive retirements they used to have. Everybody there, every new state employee, every legislator has a 401k. And the legislature voted to cut pay 10%. Office budgets have been cut. But the sneaky little retirement medical insurance is still there. Now, I put a bill in to end it, but so far the leadership won't allow it here. I want to bring that to your attention. Furlough days. Now, the governor made a lot of hay about, well, let's have 6 furlough days. We're going to save a lot of money. Well, guess what I found out? They're paying overtime after the furlough days. Yeah. So, on one recent Friday, the DHS took a day off, and then on Saturday they were brought back in on mandatory overtime. So I called the director and said, what's going on? This doesn't make any sense. And I was told, well, you know, it's within the budget. It's overtime for training. I said, overtime for training when the state is in a crisis?